Hey everyone, welcome back. And as promised, I want to sort of start showing up in your life a little bit more often than you might be used to, because the time is sort of calling for that. And yeah, I just wanted to sort of jump in and share a little bit about what I'm noticing, because it's getting a little psyopy out there. If we stick to fundamental truths to sort of guide us through all this, right? And one of those is like, we're the ones they're after, right? They want us. They want our attention. They want our focus. They want our emotional support, or they want our rebellion. They're trying to get a rise out of us. Okay, that's kind of always the case. And some of, they want to get a rise out of us for different reasons. So some want to get a rise out of us because that's what they eat. They live off of it. Some want to get a rise out of us because they want to know where we are consciously right now. What have you been prepared for? What are you prepared to sort of deal with? How much of what's next are you ready for? Like, again, this is why I say everything's a focus group. Because they want to know, and this is how they're doing it. They're using social media to sort of determine what's next. And in a lot of cases, these big accounts are using their social media platforms to broadcast what they learn when they eavesdrop on my conversations. And Elon Musk is like out of control. This meme right here, I love it. Taxpayers, what is my purpose? And the little robot says, you fund a lavish lifestyle for elite pedophiles. And there's a lot of truth in this meme, right? Because that is why we're here, to live our purpose, right? But our purposes have been co-opted from us. And that's a big part of like my question to everyone is like, why do you care about politicians? Like, have you noticed lately, I don't know, the last, going on 10 years now, that politics has really sort of come to the fore? Like, it's kind of replaced television. It's become television. Like, what used to be reality television is now politics, right? Like, the new celebrity class, it's all political. Have you noticed? And so they're trying to sort of bring in this wave of the new elite class, right? Like the guy who owns MMA, Dana White, and Kid Rock. Like, basically whoever's hanging out with Donald Trump is like the cool club. And so, like, if you've been to Mar-a-Lago, like if you've done any like photographs with Trump, like, you're officially in the cool club, and Trump represents the cool club, which is replacing the shit club, right? And so most people are like, oh, thank gosh, like, but it's like, wait, what are we replacing? And it's like, oh, one ruler for another ruler. Like, I got beef with the word ruler. Like, I don't like it. Like, I actually quoted Thomas Jefferson in one of my videos. I quoted him in my book. And I wish I could go back and take it out, because he uses the phrase rulers in his quote. And I hadn't realized how much beef I actually had with that until I sort of heard it out loud. Like, I don't want to be ruled by anyone, least of all a politician. I mean, have you ever stopped and asked yourself, like, what kind of person wants to go into politics in the first place? Like, who wants to be a politician? Who's that interested in what other people got going on that they got to go be in the business of telling other people how to spend their time? Like, who are these politicians? When I was growing up, if you wanted to be like a hall monitor or a crossing guard, or like even if you wanted to be a cop, it was because you didn't have any game. Right? It was because you couldn't get people to pay attention to you using the gifts that God gave you. So you had to go co-opt authority. You had to basically, the system had to tell you that you were cool enough to get laid. Right? Like you go and you become a politician because you can't walk into a bar and close on your own. You need a title, right? And I've been noticing that with this whole new wave of like what masculinity is supposed to be. Like they're trying to replace one form of toxic masculinity with another, if you ask me. With all these like, well, you have to be a millionaire, right? Because you're not a man unless you're rich. Right, that's the new thing. And then if you want to get laid, you have to have millions of dollars in your checking account at any given time because that's the new cool. That's what Dana White and Joe Rogan and all these sort of dudes that have to get rich to get laid are trying to convince us of. You know, Donald Trump. Like if you want to get a hot wife, you have to be rich. And that just wasn't true growing up for me. You know, if you needed to do all that just to get a girlfriend, you were a dork. You know, it's as if Revenge of the Nerds actually happened. And we were so busy like going to parties and getting laid that we didn't even realize that Revenge of the Nerds was real and it's taking place all around us because we were too busy having a good time. And I think that's kind of what happened. And so I, as sort of someone who always looked at people, fuddy-duddies, you know, that had to wear a badge or a gun or, you know, a uniform to impress the ladies, I always just kind of saw them as losers. And now those are the ones who are trying to tell us what it means to be cool. And I don't consent to that. I don't consent to that. If you're a politician, you're a dork. If you're a politician, if you have to steal in order to feel powerful, then you're a dork. You know, I don't think any of these motherfuckers have any business ruling over any of us, you know. And we'll talk about that more, and I think we might be heading in that direction. You know, all hope is not lost to be truly free. I just think it has to be done in stages because a lot of us, if we were set free today, we would not last very long. You've heard me say this. There's a whole group that wouldn't know what to do with their freedom if they were handed it, and they might not make it. So there's more maturing that needs to be done. And I think this explains a lot of what's going on in Europe. I think Europe has been captured longer than we have. Europe is sort of where all this deep, dark, terrible, like Vlad the Impaler is from Europe. You know, Rome, that's in Europe. You know, all these rulers, that all started in Europe. Maybe Egypt. But it certainly goes back a lot longer than here in the States. So our sort of, let's not call it a revolution. Let's call it our spiritual revolution, right? Our collective come to Jesus moment happened a little bit faster, right? Because we're not quite as captured as they are. Like we've still got our guns. And if you try and take our guns, you better bring a gun. You better be ready to fight. Like we still have fight in us here. We're still scrappy. Like we haven't been completely brainwashed. We haven't had all of our survival instincts brainwashed out of us just yet because we're a little bit newer to all this soul snatching and, you know, again, like Vlad the Impaler is European, like Dracula is from Europe. And so we don't have as much generational trauma to recover from theoretically as they do over there, which would explain why they're a little bit more agreeable to all the BS. And it explains why it's taking a little bit longer for it to be undone. And so, you know, I have found that it's helpful to take a step back from all this and see it as a global issue, not just a local issue here in the United States, a regional issue. Like, oh, right. Like the whole wide world needs to be woken up. And we may have woken up a little bit quicker over here. Okay. We may have demonstrated through our focus groups, you know, through social media and interactions like that, that we're ready, you know, that we are ascended, that we don't consent to any of this, that whenever you tell us, you know, we'll go fight for our own freedom here, we'd rather die, than suffer under the weight of this BS. And I think that's kind of the attitude we all kind of have to have. And we're sort of waiting for that to happen over in Europe. And I think it's catching on. I think this new blatant PM, coup sort of kicked the can down the road on the Jimmy Savile case. I think that's his name. Yeah, Jimmy Savile. That's really got them up in arms. The fact that Elon's out there just dropping scorched earth truth bombs on the people of the UK over what they're allowing to sort of unfold without so much as like even getting irritated by it. I think this is what we're seeing. Like, how much of this shit are you guys willing to put up with over there before it bugs you enough to do something about it? Because there's some heinous stuff. There's some heinous deeds being exposed right now. And I guess the focus groups are sort of like wondering, like, where are y'all on this? Are you guys outraged? Like, are you ready to do something about it? Like, or do you just want to be left alone? Because they do come down pretty hard on them over there. You can go to jail for posting on social media, which is interesting. I mean, let's go to the inversion principle, right? Everything's inverted. So getting thrown in jail for social media posts, that rings a lot of what was going on in the United States. In 2021, 2022, we were sort of heading in that direction and we didn't let it happen. We got pissed. We did something about it, right? So we turned the tide on that. And so if we think about inverting the inversion, well, what's going on over there? Well, the same thing that was going on over here 2 years ago. And if you sort of extrapolate, okay, well, what's going on with all the people in the United States, the blues, right? The people who voted that way. They're kind of going through the near-death experience that the Reds went through 4 years ago, right? And so I think we're all kind of having to sort of deal with our karma, both on a personal level and collectively. And so over there in the UK, they've got more of this human trafficking, this deep, dark past to deal with than we do. So it's going to be a little bit longer for them to sort of handle their karma, right? Because it took longer to accrue the karma. It's going to take longer to transmute the karma. And, we're going to have to sort of know what we put the other through. Like I went through this on a personal level. Every bullshit stunt I'd ever pulled on anyone, that made their life less happy, right? I interfered in a way that caused harm. I had to live through that experience done unto me. That's how karma works. So if you fuck somebody over, you're going to get fucked over the exact same way you fuck that person over. And we have to deal with that if we want to heal. We have to apologize. We have to atone. And we have to live through what we put others through so that we can become sovereign. Now, if we think of this collectively, like if we're transmuting our collective karma, it's going to be a little bit longer over there in Europe. And so this is what we're seeing, okay? I think. I think it's gone on longer over there, so it's going to take longer to clean up. They've got more karma to deal with over there, so it's going to take them longer to transmute it. And we see the attention being cast upon the UK right now, so that they can get busy dealing with their karma, so that they can get busy transmuting their karma, so that they can clean up some of the messes, right, that they've made over there collectively. Like, when you think about it, like Great Britain has a lot to do with all the problems that we're dealing with collectively, like, y'all screwed it up for all of us. You know, your little monarchy thing you got going on over there. So that means you got more karma to deal with. Like, the Great Britain's been screwing up reality for everyone for a long time. And so we kind of have to think in those terms a little bit. You know, we are a global community. I know we think about what's going on over here in the U.S. quite a bit, but when you take a step back and you realize, like, oh, they really started all this. Like, they're the main offenders. They're the culprits. You know, the king and queen. They're telling our guy what to do. I mean, like, the monarchs are the bosses. You know, same with you know, the crime families and all that. We're new to all this darkening of reality over here in the U.S. So, yeah, I mean, that is kind of what I think is happening in a nutshell. That's why Europe is getting blasted so hard right now, because they've done a lot of harm. And they got a lot of karma that they got to make up for. And the people of Europe have to start realizing that they're part of that. You can't just stick your head in the sand if you're over there in, you know, London. I know it's a tough society to live in. I mean, I'm from D.C. And D.C.'s no walk in the park. Nah, it ain't London. But it ain't no walk in the park either. But my point is the people are so shell-shocked, right? They're so afraid that if they do anything, if they stand up for who they are, then bad things will happen to them. And what we have to realize collectively is that the bad things are already happening to us. And it's only going to get worse. And until you're kind of ready to, until you realize that there are things worse than death, and that we're not just here to survive. We're here to live. And if you're going to put us in certain circumstances, like, you can fuck the fuck right off, right? And we'll just go down fighting. And then what are you going to do? And I think once the people of the UK sort of adopt that mindset, like, I'd rather die than live under this clown circus regime for one more second than I have to, that's when the leaders over there are going to start taking the people a little bit more seriously. And I think we might be there. I think the people there have had it and are kind of where we are as a country, you know, as Americans. I mean, we call it taking the oath, and we all know what that means. I'm not going to get too descriptive about it, but we took the oath. That's what makes us sort of scrappy as Americans. That's why I think the surreality of all this sort of blew through here quicker. Like, it was surreal for a minute, and then it just became predictable in the U.S. And now the surreality and the unpredictability has sort of moved over to Europe. Like, what in the actual, you know, what is actually going on over there? Like, I couldn't tell you, but I can actually. The people over there, you know, they've been captured longer. They're more frightened, you know, for their safety, and it's going to take them a little bit longer to get their will to live back and their fight, you know, their fighting spirit back. And that's what we need. We all need to be willing to fight and die for our freedom. And if we'd rather just be safe and get fat and, you know, eat food that poisons us and stay alive a little bit longer, then that'll work for our captors. That'll work forever. So it really is up to us to decide, like, no more. And once that decision is made, there will be truly no more. Because they don't want to fight. They don't want to fight us. They don't want to mess with people that eat healthy and, you know, believe in God and go running and do push-ups. Like, they don't want to mess with healthy, sovereign people. And so once we remember, right, that if you're a political person, if you're somebody that needs to be told by the state that you're powerful, to feel powerful, I'm not afraid of you. Like, I'm not going to fear getting into a wrestling ring with someone that needed his dad or, you know, the governor of his state to tell him he's a good little powerful boy. I'm not going to fear that guy getting into the ring. I'm not going to be afraid of someone who needs to be told they're powerful to know they're powerful. No one's going to fear that guy. And so, you know, once red-blooded, like, healthy, sovereign human beings decide to be just that, people who need to hide behind uniforms, people who need to hide behind municipalities, people who need to hide behind status, you know, they fold like a house of cards. I mean, I've been in confrontations, so I know how to take out someone who's not as equipped to sort of deal with the stress of a particular situation. Like, if you can't stand up in those situations, you're going to tuck tail and run, or you're going to hide behind the people who can. And I'm usually one of the people that other people hide behind when the shit hits the fan. So I know what it's like to win in real situations. I don't cheat either. I win. And so, you know, if your adversary is someone who can't really fight, if your adversary is someone who can't really stick up for themselves, the minute you sort of grow a backbone and decide that you're willing to fight, they're not going to fight. They're just going to flee. They're going to retreat. So I think that's what they're waiting for over in Europe. They're waiting for the social media. They're waiting for the focus groups, right? They're waiting for the people of that region to demonstrate that they're ready to fight and that they're not just going to stay safe. You know, they're not going to stick their heads in the sand and hope that everything works out in the end. They're willing to do something about it. And when the people over there get to that point, then the levee's going to break. And that's what Elon's doing. Like, how can you stand for this? He's really talking to the people, I think, of Britain. Like, are you really going to put up with this 1 second longer? People of UK. Anyway, yeah, so that's how I think about it, and I hope this has helped. I mean, maybe just having something to watch has taken your mind off things for a minute. I hope it's helped. There will be more. Because it's a new ConnectNeo. It's the ConnectNeo show. I hope it helped. More soon. Thanks for sticking around, and we'll see you next time.
Like that, now we've even got, what's his name? Keir Starmer, sir. That bastard excused Jimmy Savile. He's the one who signed off and said there wasn't enough evidence. That bastard is going to be the prime minister. So a guy who literally, who signed off and said not enough evidence of the man what we now know, Sir Jimmy Savile, who raped 500, while being greeted by the Queen and, BBC covering. Keir Starmer, is this acceptable? I'll tell you what, I'd rather die in the fight than bow to that crap.